Hey fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. I'm Michael Pachter, your host. I am hopeful that you are watching this real time because you are either a SIFTD subscriber or you have taken the time to link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account. If you do that, then Amazon will pay, and you pay nothing. It's all included as part of your Amazon Prime membership. So please try to remember to do that. If you're a YouTube subscriber, we appreciate the subscription. If you are none of these things, then you're watching this a week late, and that's because I insist, because I don't get paid. I want to make sure you guys get the product. Shane needs to pay for the product, so it takes him a while to edit this stuff and gas to get out here and film this thing. So appreciate it if you can support us. If not, we understand. From YouTube, from Game Time Joe. Now that we've basically seen the permanent replacement for E3, what do you think? Do you agree with Geoff Keighley's statement that he didn't kill E3 and that it killed itself? Did Nintendo make a mistake not participating at all? Great question. I talked to Keighley. I talked to Nintendo. So I actually have some good scoop. I think Nintendo wants E3 to happen. And I think they pulled out because they weren't confident that it was going to be set up the way that it needed to be this year. Sony's the one who started it. EA made it worse, or EA started it, Sony made it worse, but they both kind of weren't on site and weren't renting booth space. And I think that the ESA tried to get it back in a way that just didn't work for Nintendo. But Nintendo believes in the show. As far as Keighley killing E3, absolutely not. In fact, I know this for a fact. Keighley offered to work with E3 and with ESA and to host a investor-friendly, media-friendly show. Call it E3 and kind of make it smaller and do it the way Keighley believes it should be done. And E3 rejected that. So not accepting Keighley's offer was their prerogative, but then they ended up not having a show. And what this comes down to is, the ESA made about $30-40 million a year renting out booth space at E3, and then beginning in 2020 they made zero. And clearly in 2020 and 21 they couldn't get it back. In 22 they failed to get it back, and in 23 they had to cancel because they didn't have enough participation. I think the ESA has to give up on the idea that this is going to be a for-profit event, and I think that they need to do the best they can to break even or lose $1 million or $2 million, because they're going to make a ton of free media. I think if you remember back when Trump ran for president in 2016, they said he got $2 billion of free media, and he did. The media covers everything that guy does. The video game industry, if the media covers everything they do, they'll get free publicity. Branding is the point of E3. Showing games to retailers is the second most important thing of E3. Having investors meet with managements is the third most important thing. The fans have nothing to do with it other than that they watch this on media. You don't need a fan show. You don't need an in-person fan show. We get those at Gamescom, at PAX. There's plenty of opportunity at Keighley's Summer Game Slam, their Summer Games Fest. There's plenty of opportunity. So I personally think E3 is either over or they'll get religion and they'll work with Keighley next year. I am hopeful that they'll do what they tried to do in Santa Monica, but do it downtown. They'll have a show that's focused on maybe 10,000 people, which would be the key developers, the key management, all the retail partners, all the brand partners and investors. Hold it downtown so everybody's captive. It's not spread out. It's all in a place where we can all get together. Let Keighley run the game display side of it and invite all the influencers that matter. Have core media cover it, so you have NBC and CNBC and CBS morning, Sunday morning. They're broadcasting from the show floor. I think that will work. I actually think Keighley's event, I think, is a real draw for game customers, people who are consumers of the product already. It is not a big draw for your mom. And the point is that your mom makes Christmas present decisions. She needs to know about what the next game from, Xbox Hellblade is. I mean, she needs to know what's coming so that she can kind of start to think about what she's going to get you and not wait for you to put it on a list. I think it's really harmful that the games industry doesn't have a big media event, and I think it's really helpful that a guy like Keighley is taking it upon himself to try to be that substitute. The Game Awards is his substitute for the Academy Awards, but what the games industry is missing is branding of the different big brands. Sony thinks they're doing it on their own. They are not. They have game consumers paying attention, not mass media. EA, same thing. When they pulled out of E3, the mass media ignored them. No, Keighley didn't kill it. So I hope that it comes back. If not, Keighley's going to probably work, I'm going to talk to him, to try to bring managements and investors in. I think he might be able to pull that off, but he's going to need a bigger event. He's going to need more games and a much bigger event. We'll know this time next year, won't we? If there's one more E3 and it works, it'll be back. If there's one more E3 and it doesn't work, it's over. And if there is not one more, if they don't get an E3 next year, it is over. So I think this is the last chance that the ESA has. Like I said, I spoke to Nintendo. They're pretty adamant, and so is Phil Spencer at Xbox. They're pretty adamant that we should have a brand-focused event. And let me make a real simple example. When you see an ad for a Ford F-150 truck, you don't run out and buy a truck. When you see an ad for a McDonald's McRib sandwich, you don't get up off the couch and run out and buy a McRib. It's branding. It reminds you. So E3 is a giant branding exercise that everybody sees. And Keighley's event, as good as it was, and I really thought it was good, you had to tune in. You had to, if you didn't go in person, you had to go to the Summer Game Fest, website and watch it real time. I guess you can watch it archived. So how many people watched it? 1 million, 2 million? Not 100 million. My mom used to call me every E3 and say, "Are you at that show? I saw it on, Today Show." And the Today Show did, in fact, broadcast from the floor of E3. That'll happen again if the ESA gets its act together. I went to Keighley's event. He didn't get all the big names, but he got a lot of big names. I think, I got Ed Boon, which matters to me, but I think that one of the things, you don't want to see Brian Intihar, who's a great guy, up there for Spider-Man. You want to see Ted Price. Ted Price lives in Tennessee. He didn't make the trip. E3, he might have made the trip. So I think you really have to have an event where the corporate chiefs tell the senior developers show up. I didn't see Rod Ferguson at Keighley's event because Diablo launched the day before, but he would have been at E3. So I think it matters. I think you want to see those guys. If you don't brand, it's short-lived and better than ever. How? Like, I got to say that if your mom doesn't know that Zelda's out, then the industry's not doing better than ever. Your mom knows about Call of Duty, right? But she doesn't know Fable's coming back, and she would know if it was a big enough deal at E3. It's a weak argument to say it's sort of like saying I don't have health insurance because I'm healthy. Okay, it's great. I'm healthy. I don't need it. And then something happens like what happened to Shane, where you're really glad you have health insurance, right? How much was your surgery?
40 grand.
Yeah, exactly. And how much is your insurance? Not 40 grand, right? So the point is that, my wife had had breast cancer, $208,000, and my out-of-pocket was $80. So, you're great until you're not. And so the industry is super healthy, but E3 is insurance to make sure people don't forget. And like I said, if the ESA abandons the thought that they need to make money and thinks of it more as long as we don't lose a lot of money, we're getting tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of free publicity, it'll happen. I talked to the chairman of the ESA, Dave Haddad, and I talked to Nintendo, and I talked to Xbox, and I talked to Keighley. They're all on the same page. Keighley wants to do it his way, and I honestly don't blame him. I think he's gotten important enough that he can flex, but I think the ESA has to give. And honestly, I don't think you need to hand everything over to Keighley and say run everything. I think you need to let Keighley run his event within E3. I would add an education track I would have, so the developers have a reason to come, and I would have people kind of show game techniques and AI and the latest from Unity, and get all those guys there, get them all involved, and make them big educational media events to kind of show the promise of metaverse, AI, game development, and I think, again, get the corporate chieftains all there, so that, like I remember for the minute that we thought E3 was happening this year, the CFO was going to fly down just to come to my party and meet with investors with me, but nobody else from EA was coming because they had already decided they weren't going to have an EA Play Days, and that's just wrong. So again, they're in the ESA. They will get pressure from Microsoft, Sony, Warner Brothers, Ubisoft, Nintendo, and I think they'll show up. They don't need a big booth. Like, tell them to show up because the cost is not going to be $10 million for a booth or $5 million. The cost is going to be $100,000, for hotel rooms and airfare for the 20 people that matter. They'll do it because they'll get $100,000 worth of benefit out of it. So that's what you need to do. Bring the developers in, bring the executives in, and have, meetings with investors and meetings with retailers. Sell your product. It's funny, David Add, who I love at Warner Brothers, he's like, do you really need the investors there? And I go, I don't know, Dave, do you get paid in stock? Do you want your stock to go up? And he goes, oh, yeah. So, yes, that's the point. Like, all these guys get paid in stock. So the answer to the question, how do you say, well, the industry is doing better than ever? Go look at the stocks. They are not. Okay, the stocks are all kind of dragging bottom. Take-Two, I think, has been under 100 in the last couple of years, but it's at 120, and that's only because they teased Grand Theft Auto. Nintendo is dragging along kind of a trough. Activision, except for the deal, would be at a trough. EA at a trough. So, like, all of them, EA was at 175. It's at 120 something. So all these stocks would be up, and the executives would be richer if they could get investors interested. And the way to get investors interested is have a spectacle that investors want to attend. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. If you're a Patreon patron, thank you so much. If you have managed to link your Amazon Prime and Twitch Prime accounts together, we're getting paid, so thank you very much. And if you're a YouTube subscriber, we appreciate it. I should say Shane appreciates it. If you can do none of those things, I insist that you get it free because I am not getting paid. Please make sure to follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter, and I'm happy to give you a shout out if you guilt me into it. I'll see you guys next time.